Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor and privilege to be able to share a little bit about the community I work on behalf of, the Latino community and the Cully neighborhood in Northeast Portland. But before I start that, I want to set the tone. I think it's important, as we all know, that we need to be clear about that we're not going to get jack out of this federal administration. And anything that we get is going to be because we fight like hell to get it. Whether that is civil rights complaints, Title VI complaints, whether that is rollbacks to mercury pollution, air pollution, clean power plan, whether that is simple as monitoring. This administration will be cutting funding for the very monitoring we need to know what pollution is landing in our backyards. So we all know that, and we all know we have multiple fronts to fight on, but I'm going to return to this because it's about capacity of our communities to fight on these multiple fronts and to have people of color and low-income people, the most impacted by these things, able, equipped, and have capacity to be able to lead and set the agenda for those fights. The second is the state. So I just came back from a trip to California. I serve on the board of Earth Justice, national conservation organization, the nation's largest environmental law firm. We have 95 attorneys nationwide. I'm very proud to say that all 95 are already fully engaged in pushing back on the administration's rollbacks to human health and environmental safeguards that we've had in place for many decades. But what I learned in California is that even with strong air quality standards, even with one of the most progressive cap and invest programs in the country around climate, around carbon pollution, even with strong EJ communities made up of people of color-led organizations from Southern California to Northern California, hotspots still exist among communities of color. The air quality in the San Joaquin Valley is some of the worst in the country. And guess who lives there? Low-income people and Latinos. So the message was very clear to me that Oregon has a unique opportunity, as Ben alluded to earlier, but it's one we need to take much further than we've ever taken before. And I often hear my progressive and liberal, mostly white friends say the land use laws we enacted in the 1970s were the most progressive in this country, and look what they've done for us. And I will have no argument with that. They've done great things. We need to be bold like that again on behalf of low-income people and people of color right now. Because if we don't, we will end up with hotspots, we will end up with air quality that impacts low-income people, people of color, tribal people in worse and disparate ways than it does for our white counterparts. And we can't end up with that situation. We've come too far, and it's time for Oregon to rise and shine and stop being in third place on the West Coast. So I know there's lots of state folks out there, and I for one, want to be proud. I want to be in that position of being able to say we enacted the most stringent, we stood up to industry, the strongest in this legislative session and in the cleaner air rulemaking. So I call on all of you out here today, if you want to talk about environmental justice, great. But it calls for us to be very strong right now in this moment. So the last thing I want to talk about is the local level. And in my neighborhood, in the Cully neighborhood, we found in February of last year, thanks to the U.S. Forest Service, that we had some of the highest levels of toxic air emissions found in moss in our neighborhood. 5 different chemicals were found at higher levels than anywhere else in this region. And it was frustrating at the time, knowing that Cully is a predominantly low-income people of color neighborhood, and yet the alarms weren't ringing in our neighborhood. The attention was on Bullseye and Ouroboros, and rightly so. Those were important situations for our DEQ to address. But it took us as a community saying, hey, folks, we need some attention over here to figure out what the heck's going on. And I'm really glad to report that our agencies were responsive. DEQ, Oregon Health Authority, Multnomah County, responded and installed monitors in our community. And first step was finding out there's no smoking guns, which is good, but also challenging, so we still don't know what's causing the problem. And then they continued the commitment, more monitoring in our community by the state, monitoring by the Portland State University folks. An intern brought to us by Neighbors for Clean Air and Portland State University. Thank you very much, Mary. What I want to say, though, that I want everyone to hear is that if we can't get air quality standards that can protect the residents of Cully, low-income people, people of color, with 2 arterials running through our neighborhood, Columbia Boulevard, Portland Highway, lots of diesel emissions, point sources like asphalt factories, glass-making facilities that, under our current air quality system, are allowed to emit up to 250 pounds per lead per year. With an opacity standard, that's impossible for us as a community to be able to say, okay, they're emitting that, we're not. One of those facilities is installing a $51 million upgrade to its facility right now, as we speak. And all we have the power to do at the community level is to receive a notice of intent to construct from that facility, and really no leverage to be able to say, hey, can you clean up that lake next to you that you polluted for 30 years? Hey, can you tell us more about your lead emissions that you're dumping on our community? And so from a community perspective, very little leverage relative to legal standards in Oregon, and very little capacity as a community to be able to resist. And so the one thing I want to come out of these conversations today as well is make sure that whatever we do with the standards, with the VW, settlement, we get money to communities of color and low-income communities to make sure that they can organize themselves, create the awareness among themselves in multiple languages, and be able to advocate on their own behalf. And that's often the missing piece in all of this conversation, so I really encourage that. I just want to say thanks again to the organizers and the great work that they've been doing, and Neighbors to Clean Air and Multnomah County. Thanks a lot for your help.